what bothers me. Why am I me? Don't get me wrong, I'm totally okay with being me. It might seem a silly question at first, but there are 7 billion people on this planet. But I feel like I'm in the body of a very particular person. Was there an option to be somebody else? To be born in another country? Or time? Maybe even another being like a chicken? Why am I me? This question arises because I got the feeling I'm something inside this body I own. How can we define this me anyway that we are talking about? If you removed parts of my body, am I still me? I guess so. So where am I? In my brain? I can move my hand with it in a conscious way, but some things are done without my knowledge. Sometimes I can switch from a conscious to a non-conscious task, like breathing. Once I learn a new task, like juggling, after a while I do things without being aware. What if you removed parts of my brain? We know that there are a lot of different systems in our brain that enable us to perform certain tasks. If they get damaged, we lose the ability to do them. But I would still be me, right? We know from people who had brain injuries that even their personality can change. There are also a lot of chemical and drugs that can induce personality changes. And how we feel anyway depends on hormones and external input. Despite all of this, a person would still feel like themselves, wouldn't they? Even when we say somebody is not themselves today, do we mean he feels like somebody else? I don't think so. There's something that stays. Here's where it gets interesting. We are talking about the miraculous consciousness, a word which is hard to define in the end, so I like to call it the me feeling. Is there a part of the brain that creates the me feeling? It does not look like it. And if there was, could we remove it? Would the result be a human who is not aware of himself? A zombie in disguise? What about artificial intelligence? Will it be aware of itself in the future? Imagine there's a closed room with somebody inside who is not capable of understanding Chinese. But he has got a book with instructions that represent a computer program that simulates intelligence and speaks Chinese. The person could receive Chinese characters through a slot in the door, process them according to the program's instructions, and produce Chinese characters as an output. Somebody outside the room might think there's a Chinese-speaking individual inside it, but the person is only following instructions and has no idea what he is doing. There seems to be no me feeling involved here. Imagine someday in the future we would be able to enhance our brains. You would still possess a single consciousness, but an expanded one. But what if you could connect two? Where does one start and the other end? A real example of this is a special case of conjoined twins. They are connected at their brains and are able to see through each other's eyes. Would you say these are two individuals? Consciousness seems hard to catch. Are we chasing something that does not exist anyway? So let's have a look on some assumptions that have been made regarding the me feeling. According to some belief systems, there is something that is separate from our body called soul. It has been created by an entity and assigned to a physical body by an unknown selection process and placed on a conveniently created environment. Also, it will go to another unknown environment after the life of the body ends. This raises a lot of questions. For example, why we see some history of our world without any life and why we see a vast universe void of any consciousness. Now we must worry about the future fate of the me feeling, separate from a body. We just cannot imagine the me feeling not existing anymore, because it is all we experience. We totally disregard the infinite time before we were born, as we did not experience it. Some religions even include a return of the soul into another physical life after death. with all these untestable claims, other claims can be made. For example, a Christian philosopher and theologian who states animals are not aware of being in pain because they lack the ability to reflect on their suffering. It seems he's saying they don't have a soul or me feeling. So would that make all exploitation of animals okay? Actually, there is no evidence for it, and everybody with a pet will have a hard time believing this. We continue to exploit animals anyway. Most humans eat meat, for example. Is this okay? We know we can digest meat, and larger primates eat meat on a regular basis. But there's a difference. We can indeed reflect on what we are doing. We cannot deny they are suffering for a short moment. Most people who dedicated their life to rationality come to the realization it is wrong, but most lack the strength to live without meat. As well as me, by the way. So can we live without inflicting pain on other creatures? Some people try. Jainism is an ancient Indian religion dedicated to not inflicting pain. The only religion, by the way, that has never engaged in war. They wipe the floor in front of their feet clean so that they do not step on any bugs, and they also try not to swallow them accidentally as they breathe. Interestingly, they carry the same symbol that has become known as the symbol for the worst in mankind. So what is the position of science regarding the me feeling? It says that life, as well as its cognitive functions, is a result of a very special environment. It is due to a process continuing over billions of years that we are faced with the complexity of something like the human brain. And what we call consciousness, the me feeling, might be a so-called emergent property. Look at this swarm of sparrows and let me ask a few questions. What exactly about the swarm makes it a swarm? If we remove a few birds, is it still a swarm? If two swarms are connected through a few birds, are there two swarms or one? Where does the swarm go when the birds don't form a swarm? Sounds familiar? A swarm is an emergent construct. It is a name for something that has properties other than the sum of its parts. A swarm can change shape, for example, a bird cannot. Now imagine a swarm could think and reflect on itself when it is a swarm. If the birds split ways and come together later, no time has passed for the swarmness, and it was nowhere. Still, an important question remains. Is it the same swarm? It leads to the teleportation problem. If you dissolve the being completely and rebuild it in the exact same way down to the single atom, will it be the same being? Will it have the same me feeling or a new one? The same goes for copies of the being. There's a weird thought I've had my whole life. It is a bit hard to explain and there will be no way to test it, but it leads to some interesting implications, bear with me. Maybe there is just one me feeling. We distinguish between individuals, you and me, because it is the me feeling acted out by a neural network within its time frame, whilst it acts differently like different swarms. Creating the me feeling of being oneself is the same, whilst it can have different degrees depending on the type of brain. In the end, it is one thing. Maybe the question why am I me is a silly one, because I'm also everybody else. As time plays no role for the me feeling when my brain is not currently creating it, maybe I am simultaneously each and every consciousness from the beginning to the end of time in the whole universe. I know it sounds crazy, it is just a thought, but think what it would mean. When I see somebody else that is better off than me, I should be happy out of pure egoism, because I will or have already experienced it. It is difficult to speak in terms of time here, as we strictly distinguish between past, future and now. but we are not even sure when it is now, and we know that time is just a feature of space that is bound to it and can be distorted with it. In some way, life would be perfectly fair, because when I interact with somebody at some moment outside of time, I will be the other part experiencing it, because there is just one me. Well, in the end you could say it makes no difference, because while your brain is creating your consciousness, your life is what it is, and it is in your hands. Sure, it is just a thought experiment, and it is already late. I have to lose my consciousness for about 6 hours. Still, sometimes when I dream I get my me feeling back, wandering around in my own brain. Whatever my idea means, it means somehow I'm talking to myself right now. Greetings to all the other me's out there. I wish I could remember when I was you. I'm Morn1415 and the real world is incredible.